Yeah?
Let's start, yeah, it's recording right now, so.
Alright, thank you guys for taking your time out of your day. I know you guys all want to go home / want to get back to the floor. No, okay, never mind then. So my speech, I want to enlighten you / kind of give you more insight on what we could be doing better for the government. Not for the government could be doing better for us as students, especially for those who are going back to school and seeking a higher education. Many people find that college is not completely paid for, especially by the government. We're finding that more people are having blue-collar jobs because they can't afford to go back to school. They can't afford to send their children to college. They can't afford to save up for that. And they find that they're in more debt. So yeah, they're not able to save and they're not able to get good jobs. And more places are requiring more education. So at least for the first 2 years, we can be helping out with that. Yeah. I hate doing this. I'm sorry, guys. Huh? Yeah. Oh, this is not recording. No, this is not recording, sorry. So yeah, so many are seeking higher education because we're not making ends meet. Yes. So we're seeing more and more debt. More people are finding that they have to get full-time jobs instead of college. They're not happy with the cost of living because it keeps rising, and we're requiring more education. We're getting less and less income as well, even though the economy keeps rising. So it's harder for us to be able to send kids to college. We can't get, we either have to get a full-time job or take out massive loans to be able to pay for this extra education. Let's say your kid goes to UCF. They go to UCF for 4 years. It's going to cost you about $25,000, at the very least $25,000 to be able to go to University of Central Florida. Ridiculous acronym. That's a down payment to a house. That's also a brand new off-the-lot car that you could be paying for with that money. Instead, we're paying for that college. So, Jeremy Thompson, who is a senior analyst, wrote an article in A Promise of Equity that said, designing a debt-free higher education program that works for everyone. He said that the Massachusetts budget went from 32%, fell 32% from 2001 to 2018. So that's a lot less funding. That's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that they don't have for their college. So since jobs are requiring more and more education, why is the government not helping for this transition that we're doing? That more jobs are requiring this education, why aren't we getting more help for it? According to the U.S. government, there's Pell Grants. That's one of the arguments. We have Pell Grants. So Pell Grants are government funding. We don't have to pay them back or anything like that. But according to the Department of Education, the maximum Pell Grant that we could get was $6,195 for the 2019 and 2020 award year. Let's go back to that number, that $25,000 number for that 4 years, okay? The only way for you to be able to get that high of a number is if your expected family contribution is low. So if you're literally making absolutely no money, you can be able to get that maximum amount, which will cover the first 2 years. Your cost of attendance, if your cost of attendance is actually that $6,195, then it will be that $600,195. If you are a full-time or part-time status student, so if you're only going part-time, you only get a very small portion of that, because they consider that you can have a part-time job as well, or a full-time job as well. And then whether or not you're gonna go through the whole year of schooling, or you can also do year-round schooling. And now they have, just as of 2018, they just started giving Pell Grants for the whole year instead of just per semester. Okay. So, but what if the government did help? What would it change? First of all, as a nation, we would be more educated. We would be more informed. According to the Trade Schools College University's website, in their article, Should Colleges Be Free? Pros, Cons, and Alternatives, that was last updated in February of this year, we would be able to also not only be more informed, but we would be more focused. We would have more ability to be able to do things like buy a house, buy a car, raise children the way that we want to actually be able to raise children, be able to provide for them the way that we are supposed to be. And then we'd have a more prosperous nation. Sorry. So the question begs, how? How do we accomplish this? Hopefully we can get the government to help at least for the first 2 years of college. If we can do that, that would take an immense amount off of what students have to pay. That's almost $10,000 to $20,000 that students do not have to pay. Just for the associates, it would give, if we were able to get the associates for those first 2 years, because after 2 years you get your associate's degree. If after those first 2 years and you got your associate's degree, you can get a pretty well-paid job. Take, for instance, us being LPNs, that took a little over a year for us to be able to get it, and now we're making a pretty good amount of, well, more than the average minimum wage, right? So how? So we would be able to do things like make the wealthy pay more of their taxes. Last year they got a lot of tax breaks. A lot of tax breaks. So if we were to ixnay on that, we would be able to have more for this funding. We'd be able to give larger grants to those who make $125,000 or less. So if you're making only $125,000 a year per household, you'll be able to get this funding. And then let's crack down on things that we don't need to spend money on, like a wall that we don't really actually need. So yeah, I'm hoping this gives new generations